Hey guys, so I timed a +10 Shrine of the Storm last night, and the affixes were Tyrannical, Bolstering, Grievous, and Infested. So in the past, I tend to stay away from high-level keys that have Grievous just because it tends to be very challenging and very taxing on a healer, especially when those stacks get really high. It gets really difficult to clear them on multiple people at once. So another thing to note that I think made the situation a lot easier than it could have been was that I was with a Blood DK tank, Rookley, shout out to Rookley, and he did a great job mitigating the Grievous and kiting the Bolstering, so he made my job a lot easier. And speaking of making my job a lot easier, I had just noticed that Grievous was recently nerfed to cap at 4 stacks per debuff. So in the past the debuffs could have gotten a lot higher than 4, and if you had multiple stacks on multiple people, you were in a lot of trouble as a healer. So now that it only stacks at 4, again, makes your job a lot easier. Now what I want to do is just kind of talk about my strategy here. I'm going to show you the talents that I used. I decided to go with Bestow Faith. I know a lot of people use Crusader's Might as well. I think it's based on personal preference. Here, I wanted to play it safe by providing as much group healing as possible. I used Bestow Faith with Beacon of Virtue, so you basically cast Bestow Faith first, Beacon of Virtue right after, and by the time Bestow Faith procs, it goes through Beacon of Virtue to provide a nice group heal. And yes, I'm fully aware of Crusader's Might's ability, that it reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock, and Light of Dawn by 1.5 seconds whenever you cast Crusader Strike, so again, I'm boiling this down to personal preference and playstyle. I'm personally used to using the Bestow Faith and Beacon of Virtue combo here, so that is my decision. Now next here, I often go with Cavalier, just for movement and running through the instance quickly. A lot of people lately have been telling me they use Rule of Law, which is new to me because I've never used it in a Mythic Plus before, but I can see the merit in using it if you're away from the group to help with group healing and ranged and all that. But I chose to go with Unbreakable Spirit here, just because it reduces the cooldowns of a lot of our defensive abilities, aka the oh shit buttons. So with Unbreakable Spirit, I pretty much had a lay on hands available for almost every boss fight, so I thought that was very valuable too. And the fact that it reduced the cooldown of my bubble too turned out to be really useful. So next, I chose to use Fist of Justice, and usually I switch that between Fist of Justice and Blinding Light, but I chose Fist of Justice because I was using Hammer of Justice pretty often on Trash. I tried to use it as frequently as I could when I had the global cooldown for it, so my personal choice was to use Fist of Justice here, but again, Blinding Light does have its merits. Right, next talent I chose to go with was Devotion Aura. That's pretty much a given. I don't usually switch between my auras when I'm doing 5-mans or Mythic Pluses or anything like that. I decided to go with Holy Avenger just for the extra cooldown. I like to use Avenging Wrath and Holy Avenger back to back, especially during a boss fight. I like having that additional cooldown in my arsenal of spells, so that's why I went with Holy Avenger. Same thing with Avenging Crusader. Avenging Crusader has huge potential for burst HPS, so whenever you're popping Avenging Wrath, you're guaranteed to do some really nice group heals, and the fact that we had Grievous going on here, I wanted to make sure that I was able to provide as many group heals as possible to get everybody back to full to reset the stacks. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, I did spec for Beacon of Virtue. Again, just really helps out with the group healing and topping everybody off to full, especially when there are stacks of Grievous and and they're taking ticking damage and you want to quickly heal everybody up to remove the stacks. So that's why I went with Beacon of Virtue. Now, as I stated earlier, I did have a really good team that I ran with here. Everybody kind of knew what they were doing. We had some really good, we had some big dick DPS, so everybody was really on their game. The biggest challenge for me was when we did get into sticky situations when multiple people in the group had multiple stacks of Grievous. That was really the biggest challenge for me. So in addition to having to be really careful with bolstering and pulling the mobs and kiting and all of that, Infested complicates bolstering. So usually what you have to do is either kill the infested mob first, because it'll guarantee a bolster stack on the rest of the adds, or you pull the entire group at least 30 yards away from the infested ad just to prevent it from being bolstered. So there's 2 ways to approach it here. So just to recap, you either kill the infested ad first to prevent it from getting bolstered, or you outrange it by 30 yards from the rest of the ads to again prevent it from getting bolstered. So you gotta be really careful with bolstering, especially when there are multiple stacks on one ad. That could be really lethal to whoever the ad hits. So fortunately, Rookley, the Blood DK that I mentioned, is really good at kiting. So whenever he noticed that an ad had quite a lot of stacks of bolstering, he ran away and kited the ad so that we could just kind of burn it down while he avoided getting hit. So another thing I want to note is that I used Light of the Martyr a lot during this run, and I usually try to stray away from it, especially when I'm raiding, but it came in pretty clutch here when my other heals were on cooldown, like Light of Dawn and Holy Shock and Bestow Faith, because it provides a quick instant heal. Now I know you take damage from casting Light of the Martyr, so it might be counterintuitive with Grievous, but there are a few things that you could do to help mitigate that, like pre-casting Bestow Faith on yourself, or you could choose to get Resounding Protection, which is basically a free absorb Azerite trait for Holy Pallies, and it's very similar to Pride Az, the legendary necklace that we used back in Legion. You can see here I skipped quite a bit ahead to the final boss here. When I got separated with Rookly, I helped him DPS the ad as much as possible when we got separated from the group, and then once we got reunited with them, I also helped DPS the ad just to keep things moving along as quickly as possible here. The boss fight was pretty straightforward. I mean, like I said, this was a really good group. Here I am again helping Rookly DPS the ad, and of course avoid standing in the purple trails that the tentacles leave. Those are very painful, if not a one-shot. Just trying to keep myself Rookly alive. When we pop out, I make sure that the rest of the group is healed up as well. Battle reses are great, and we downed him. Not bad at all. I got some crit leggings and a new time on Shrine of the Storm. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, you could hit a thumbs up. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below, or your 2 cents on different talents that you used based on different affixes and different instances. If you like my content, you could hit the sub button on YouTube or follow my live stream over on Twitch at Quissy TV. Thanks a lot again, guys, and have a great day.